Being 7 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bosmus.
Here.
Commissioner Baker.
Here.
Commissioner Collins.
Here.
Commissioner Gary.
Here.
Commissioner Miller.
Here.
Commissioner Talentino.
Here.
Commissioner Twardy.
Here.
Okay, we're all here. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, thank you very much. I would ask those with cell phones if you would please put them on vibrate or turn them off. We would appreciate it. Thank you. Also at this time, if we could have a moment of silence for those 17 students and staff members who lost their lives in the terrible tragedy that occurred at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida last week. Certainly our thoughts and prayers go out to their families. Thank you. Item number 1 is a proclamation on teen dating violence awareness and the prevention month of February. And with us tonight we have Adriana Gunderson from the Diane Pepler Resource Center. And if Adriana, if you'd meet me up at the podium, I'd appreciate it. Okay, the City of Sault Ste. Marie Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month, February 2018. Whereas females between the ages of 16 and 24 are more vulnerable to intimate partner violence, experiencing abuse at a rate almost triple the national average. And whereas 1 in 3 adolescent girls in the United States is a victim of physical, emotional, or verbal abuse from a dating partner, a figure that far exceeds victimization rates for other types of violence affecting youth. And whereas high school students who experience physical violence in a dating relationship are more likely to use drugs and alcohol and are at great risk of suicide and are much more likely to carry patterns of abuse into future relationships. And whereas young people victimized by a dating partner are more likely to engage in risky sexual behavior and where unhealthy dieting behaviors and experience may disrupt normal development of self-esteem and body image. And whereas nearly half of teens who experience dating violence report that incidents of abuse took place in a school building or on school grounds. And whereas only 33% of the teens who are in an abusive relationship ever tell anyone about the abuse, and 81% of the parents surveyed either believe teen dating violence is not an issue or admit that they do not know if it is. And whereas by providing young people with education about healthy relationships and relationship skills, and by changing attitudes that support violence, we recognize that dating violence can be prevented. And whereas it is essential to raise community awareness, to provide training for teachers, counselors, and school staff so that they may recognize when youth are exhibiting signs of dating violence. And whereas the establishment of a Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month will benefit young people, their families, schools, and communities, regardless of socioeconomic status, gender, sexual orientation, or ethnicity. And whereas everyone has a right to be safe and healthy relationship and to be free from abuse. Now, therefore, I, Anthony G. Bosmus, Mayor of the City of Sault Ste. Marie, do hereby proclaim February 2018 Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month throughout Sault Ste. Marie. I urge all residents of Sault Ste. Marie to work together toward ending teen dating violence by empowering young people to develop healthy relationships, assisting victims in assessing the information and support services they need, creating better and more resources for young people in need, instituting effective intervention and prevention policies in schools, and engaging in discussions with family members and peers to promote awareness and prevention of the quiet epidemic of teen dating violence. In witness thereof, I hereby set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Sault Ste. Marie to be affixed this 19th day of February 2018. Anthony G. Bosmus, Mayor. Adriana, I'd like to present that to you. If you'd like to say a few words, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you, City Commissioners, for your support in ending violence in relationships. February is Teen Dating Awareness Month. 1 in 3 teens will experience emotional, physical, or sexual abuse in a dating relationship. 43% of college-age women report experiencing violence in their dating relationships. We are spreading education by participating in Respect Week in Eastern Upper Peninsula schools. Wear orange as a sign of support. Everyone deserves to feel safe and respected in their relationships. Thank you again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Item number 2, public comment on scheduled agenda items. Any person may reserve time to speak on an agenda item not to exceed 3 minutes per person. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on an agenda item? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the item number 3, the consent agenda. Deputy City Manager.
Under the consent agenda, A, minute approval. 1, approval of the minutes of the regular City Commission meeting of February 5th, 2018, the special City Commission meeting of January 29th, 2018, and the goal-setting session of February 12th, 2018. Recommended action is to approve the minutes of the regular City Commission meeting of February 5th, the special City Commission meeting of January 29th, and the goal-setting session of February 12th. Item 2, acceptance of the minutes of the following boards and commissions. A, Airport Advisory Board of January 11th. B, Brownfield Redevelopment Authority of December 12th. C, Dial-A-Ride Local Advisory Council of October 10th of 2017 and February 9th of 2018. D, Economic Development Corporation of January 9th. E, Tax Increment Finance Authority 3 of October 17th, 2017. And F, Zoning Board of Appeals of December 21st, 2017. Recommended action is to accept the minutes of the various boards and commissions. Item B, appointments and resignations. 1, appointment to the Community Services Board. Recommended action is to appoint Abby Bell to the Community Services Board to fill the balance of a term to expire July 1, 2019. Item 2, reappointment to the Dial-A-Ride Local Advisory Council. Recommended action is to reappoint Harriet Clow, Sharon Mayer, and Eva Spencer to the Dial-A-Ride Local Advisory Council for terms to expire on July 1, 2019. Item 3, appointments and resignations to the Seal Estate Board of Trustees. Recommended action is to confirm the mayor's appointment of Alberta Dagnall to the Seal Estate Board of Trustees for a term to expire July 1, 2018, and to appoint Mark Savoy to the Seal Estate Board of Trustees to fill the balance of a term to expire July 1, 2019. And to accept the resignation of Ruth McCord from the Seal Estate Board of Trustees and have the clerk send a letter of thanks for her service to this board. Item C, communications from the Planning Commission. Recommendation to approve a resolution to vacate without retention of utility easements the full width of the portion of East 9th Street, also known as East 9th Avenue, lying between East 10th Avenue and Marquette Avenue, and to vacate with retention of utility easements only over the full width of the southerly 140 feet thereof, the full width of the alley located between Fletcher's Addition, Block 2, and W.C. Teeter's Addition, Block 3, also known as Dakota Street. Recommended action is to schedule the public hearing on the resolution to vacate the aforementioned street and alley for the March 5th, 2018 regular City Commission meeting.
Okay, thank you. Is there a commissioner that would like something further explained on the consent agenda? Hearing none, Commissioner Tuarte.
I so move that we approve the consent agenda.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any questions? A roll call, please.
Mayor Bospis?
Yes.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Collins?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuarte?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Item 4, special orders of business. A, first reading of a payment in lieu of tax ordinance for a proposed development by the WODA Group Incorporated.
Okay, thank you. City Manager Turner.
Thank you, Mayor Bospis. As commissioners are aware, Mr. Craig Patterson, a senior vice president with the WODA Group, has approached the city of Sault Ste. Marie with a request that the city amend the duly adopted payment in lieu of taxes ordinance for the proposed Osborne Commons development that a majority of the City Commission approved in March 2017. A communication dated January 29th from Mr. Patterson outlining this request has been included. Specifically, this communication requests that the city amend the ordinance to extend its duration by roughly 1 year through March 2020. As a note, the amendatory ordinance included within the packet is a 2-year extension drafted by the city attorney, which would extend from this day, February 19th, so that ultimately, if it were to be approved by the city commission, it would extend through February 19th, 2020. As noted by Mr. Patterson, the WODA Group did not receive approval from the Michigan State Housing Development Authority for low-income housing tax credit financing during MSHDA's most recent funding round. The WODA Group, however, was encouraged by the scoring of its most recent application and intends to apply to MSHDA for financing in future rounds. Concurrently, Mr. Patterson is concerned that even if MSHDA were to approve LIHTC financing during the next round, that the delay in awarding such financing could cause construction to commence at a time that would not meet the requirements of the existing ordinance. As noted previously, Section 9 of the already adopted ordinance states in pertinent part that this section shall remain in effect provided rehabilitation of the housing development commences within 2 years from the date of original ordinance adoption. As such, under the existing language, the extension would be required for the development to commence as requested. Significant additional information relating to this request was included in the agenda packet for the February 5th regular meeting and can be provided upon request to any commissioner or member of the public. Additional project-related information, including the previously prepared market study produced by the WODA Group and access to previously prepared financial information, has also been distributed to the City Commission. Finally, as commissioners are aware, a majority of the City Commission took action during the February 5th regular meeting to instruct City Administration to amend the referenced ordinance to include the extension requested by WODA Group as described, and to return the mandatory ordinance to the City Commission for a first reading at this meeting. Accordingly, the mandatory ordinance drafted by City Attorney Canello has been included, and the next action on the proposed mandatory ordinance would be to grant the request and hold a first reading of this ordinance and return it for a future second reading and adoption. As detailed previously, the second reading and adoption would occur at the March 19th regular meeting of the City Commission if a first reading is held tonight, and accordingly it would be my recommendation that the Commission hold a first reading of the presented amendatory ordinance or in the alternative as directed by the City Commission. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gary?
City attorney's not here, but in previous meetings, I have disclosed the relationship with my employer and the WODA Group, and I think on 4 or 5 occasions, he has indicated that I must vote on this issue. So I'm just stating my disclaimer.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? City Commission. Let's go with Commissioner Collins. Would like to make a motion?
What, do you need a motion to have the first meeting?
Yeah. For
the first reading?
Approve the first, yeah.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of the ordinance. Is that what
Support. It's been moved, supported. Are there any questions? Roll. Commissioner Gary, you have a question? No? No. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Collins?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
No.
Commissioner Talentino?
No.
Commissioner Torty?
No.
Mayor Bospas?
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you.
Item 5, Communications A from the Ordinance Evaluation Committee, modification of Chapter 6, Chapter 9, and Chapter 14 of the Code of Ordinances.
Okay, thank you. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. As commissioners are aware, the City Commission took action at its February 12th goal-setting session to support the reestablishment of the goal of creating a committee that includes members of the business community and community partners as appropriate to reevaluate every city ordinance at least 50 years old. As noted previously, the goal of this committee is to review the codified ordinances of the city on a chapter-by-chapter basis in an effort to repeal unnecessary ordinances and ensure efficiencies are continuing to be maximized in operations. As additionally indicated previously, in fulfilling this mission, there have been instances in which the committee has reviewed ordinances enacted for less than 50 years, and the committee has in fact reviewed each provision of each ordinance undertaken so far. As a result of the work of the committee, a comprehensive review of Chapters 6, 9, and 14 addressing amusements, businesses and business regulation, and licenses and permits has been completed. During the January 2nd regular meeting, the Commission invited public feedback on possible changes for a 30-day period of time. A quick summary of those changes include eliminations of provisions which were determined to be unnecessary, ranging from prohibitions on the use of drawn shades to prohibitions on operating hours of bowling alleys, billiard rooms, and other like establishments, prohibitions on carnivals and circuses, as well as fire sales and bankruptcy sales, loitering of minors, regulations on used parts and auto stores, regulations on auctioneers, and the filming of movies, televisions, and commercials. Additionally, provisions were proposed for elimination based on the fact that state law already addresses the issues of the provisions, including gambling restrictions and massage parlor regulations. The balance of the chapters would be retained in full if an ordinance was adopted to codify the proposed changes. No public comments were received on the proposed changes. Accordingly, City Administration is requesting that the City Commission direct administration to draft an amendatory ordinance that would adopt the highlighted changes to the Code of Ordinances. The amendatory ordinance would be returned to the City Commission for a first reading at a future meeting if the proposed course of action is approved. Accordingly, it would be my recommendation that the Commission direct administration to draft an amendatory ordinance that would enact the presented changes to Chapter 6, 9, and 14 of the Codified Ordinances. Thank you, Mayor and Commission.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Talentino.
So moved to direct city administration to draft ordinance that would enact the present changes to Chapter 6, 9, and 14 of the City of Sault Ste. Marie's Codified Ordinance.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Collins,
Yes.
Commissioner Gary,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino,
Yes.
Commissioner Tuorty,
Yes.
Mayor Bospas.
Yes.
Commissioner Baker.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Item B under communications is from Mr. Tim Moher, communication on Sugar Island Ferry operations.
Okay, thank you. Tim, if you'd like to introduce yourself for the record, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you. My name is Tim Moher. Members of the Sioux City Commission and Your Honor, Mayor Bospas, I want to talk to you today about this request for assistance which I've provided to the city so that you were able to take a look at that. I've lived in Sault Ste. Marie for 32 years and Sugar Island for 26 years, so I've lived on both sides of the river over a quarter century each. This request for assistance that we've drafted is directed to the Coast Guard Commandant and to the United States Army Corps of Engineer Commanding General. The reason that we would like to have the City of Sault Ste. Marie join us is because the ferry has been having difficulty maintaining its regular schedule or at times a predictable schedule. There were days when the Little Rapids cut was ice choked and we were only able to run in emergency situations. This is not a matter of convenience, going to the store to buy a bag of potato chips. This is not even a matter of essentials, which I thought it was when I began. People going into their jobs, students going to school, people living their lives. I listened to a gentleman who was an old-timer from the island at a UPTA meeting on February 2nd of this year, and he stood up and he had to leave early because of his medical condition. But in years past, when he was a younger man, he was a first responder. And what he told me really hit home. He said, the 16 years that I've been a first responder on Sugar Island, he said, I would take people in the ambulance and I would get to the ferry dock. He said, all 16 years that I was a first responder, when I got to the ferry dock, I knew that it was 7 minutes to War Memorial Hospital. When Captain Dan is sitting there the last week, only able to run in emergencies, and the ambulance gets to the ferry dock, we don't know when that ambulance is going to get to War Memorial Hospital. And I think that's really significant, and it's scary. And we have the solution to fix this. What I want to do with this letter is to get the people together and work in some type of an interagency work group There are 600 people on Sugar Island. Ferry crossing is about 800 feet. There's about 120 to 150 cars crossing daily. Every 15 minutes, the ferry goes back and forth. Law enforcement, ambulance, students, employees in the city, health department, healthcare workers come daily. Everyone that drives in the city that you see can drive on the roads in Sugar Island. So we look at the ships that go by on this river, and we take them for granted, at least I do after living here this long. People come to see these ships, and we just don't notice them as much. I'd like to tell you that those ships haul 100 million tons of cargo every year. They are 3% of the GDP of the United States. This river outside our building is a massive marine transportation system. And we need to sit down with the Coast Guard, with the Army, the tribes, hopefully the township and UPTA, and deal with this paramount issue of the Sugar Island Ferry. It's nothing more than a road to us, and sometimes that road needs to be plowed. It would appear that the Coast Guard may be hamstrung because of inadequate funding or underfunding. This is borne out by my research, the fact that the Lake Carriers Association, in their annual reports from 1994 to the present, state that the Coast Guard resources for ice breaking are not enough. That's pretty much what we're facing. It's 30 years that they've been asking for more ice breaking resources. They were, in 1994, lobbying to keep the old Mackinac on the lakes. They managed to keep the Mackinac until 2006 when it was decommissioned and the new one was brought into service. The number of boats this year has been affected by refitting one and by losing one to a blown engine. I'd like to give you a little bit of history. Going back to 1855, that's when the first lock arrived in the Sioux. In 1881, the United States Army Corps of Engineers took over the locks, and in 1893, the Little Rapids Cut was dredged, and that left us with basically the river that we have today. I want to talk to you a little bit about ice. The Sioux Harbor has 1.5 feet per second water movement. The head of the Little Rapids Cut, 2.8. The Little Rapids Cut proper is 3.5 feet per second. And back into the Lake Nicolet, where it widens out, it goes back to 1.1 feet per second. That is why the location was selected for the ferry, because where the slow water is in the Sioux Harbor, that water freezes, and it gets to that 2.8 feet per second water above the ferry, and it continues to be open year-round all the way down to the end of the Little Rapids Cut until we get to Lake Nicolet. That's why that location was selected. It's ice-free naturally without the movement of the ships. With the movement of the ships, particularly this year because we had an early freeze, the ice comes down as they open up the locks. It keeps coming down, and it stuffs up the Little Rapids Cut. It impedes our ferry lane. In 1970s, we did a study. They wanted to try extended navigation all year round. And they tried this for pretty much all of the 70s. And what they found was that they could do it, but it wasn't very feasible. It was hard on everything. The ferry was affected immediately. And it was very interesting what they did to help us. The Coast Guard transported people from the island. and they had boats docked there and actually pulled the ferry back and forth between the mainland, between the ice-choked Little Rapids Cut. So they had to do something about this, and they hired a company called American Acres to study this problem, and American Acres made a scale model of the Sioux Harbor, the Little Rapids Cut, down to Lake Nicolay. And they put water in this scale model, and they used styrofoam pieces to act like ice. And they learned a solution to this problem with the ferry. It was imperative that they find this solution because in the study it was written, if we cut off these residents, these island residents, this extended navigation is a done deal. We can't do it. So the solution was an ice boom and the Coast Guard. They set up an ice boom above the ferry, and it closes in where the water comes from the Sioux Harbor and where it starts to pick up speed. It holds back the ice in Sioux Harbor, and that ice doesn't come down into the Little Rapids Cut. Ice booms are not a standalone solution. When the ice boom is in place, it lets by ice when the ships go through. It still comes, and if the ice boom fails, in the 1970 study, they quoted, "It should be mentioned that ice collection downstream of the boom is anticipated in boom operation. In the event of total boom failure, the Coast Guard would immediately be dispatched to provide transportation for Sugar Island residents." This is from the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Seaway Extended Navigation Interim Feasibility Study, Volume 3 at 4.52, which I have given you a copy of. This study cost $21 million in the 1970s. That was a lot of money back then. And the extended navigation was not implemented. It was just too hard on everything, boat, shore. There was a lot of insurance claims, and peace reigned in the river for a time. Then Congress extended the navigation season in 1988 to January 15th and reopened the locks on March 5th, and it's occurred ever since then. No problem. We have a solution. The ice booms and the Coast Guard. Now, through the 90s, we had no problem. The Coast Guard had the resources, the icebreakers, and they wrote in an environmental impact study in 1994. When the locks are closed January 16th to March 24th, the Coast Guard typically makes a single transit per day between Sault Ste. Marie and Lake Huron. And in that same study, they talked about this area, quote, "This area," referring to Sault Ste. Marie and the St. Mary's River, "enters into the ice-breaking picture during midwinter. Oil shipments and car ferries require some ice-breaking assistance." Now, something's changed, and we are told that it is a lack of resources. And it wasn't acceptable in the 1970s for Sugar Island to be stranded, and it certainly shouldn't be acceptable in 2018. What this letter is for is we want to work with the Army Corps and the Coast Guard and to continue to implement the proven solution to the Sugar Island Ferry being able to run during extended navigation. Sugar Island and the other entities which I've listed in the letter have resources to contribute to this dialogue. We have, I can name 4 ferry captains right now, 2 that are still working, and wish I had a glass of water. But anyway, 2 that are still working, 2 that are retired.
Hey, Tim,
They have 150 years.
Hey, Tim,
You're running up on 10 minutes, so we'll give you another 5 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
150 years of experience, seeing and operating in the Little Rapids Cut and the ice booms all of their working lives. I have begun to investigate the liaison program with the Army. I think that we would benefit by getting together. I will thank you. There is a lot of cooperation between the Coast Guard and shipping, and I want to get more cooperation between other users of the marine transportation system. I would like you to look for a second at the 14 USC on the back page of the second. That's the cooperation statute. It says the Coast Guard may, when asked, use its personnel and facilities to assist other agencies. That's where the idea came from for some type of working group. The language is permissive. That's significant to us lawyers because it says the Coast Guard doesn't have to. It may. However, the 2011 Commandant's instruction, which is on the back page, it's on ice breaking. It references the statute, 14 U.S.C. 141, parents, little a, and parents. It says the Coast Guard will provide ice-breaking assistance to assist remote communities under the authority contained in 14 U.S.A. 141. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I think that this is a really important thing, and I'm hoping that the city will simply support our effort to get into a working relationship with the Coast Guard and with the Army Corps of Engineers.
Thank you, Tim. City Manager? Yes. Any comments you'd like to?
Not at this time, Mayor, no.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? Commissioner Gary?
I just have one. Who are you representing? Are you on the township board or?
No, I'm a citizen of Sugar Island. I'm here to help. Rick Roy is here, our supervisor. I'm doing this because I think it's important.
I guess what you're asking then is that if the city's going to put their name to something, it should be an entity?
I didn't know if this
Maybe,
was a request from the Sugar Island Township Board or for support, or if this was just a.
I'm Rick Roy, Sugar Island Township Supervisor.
Mr. Roy, could you come to the microphone so folks at home can hear you?
Yes, I'm Rick Roy, Sugar Island Supervisor.
Thanks.
Tim has put a lot of work on this, and he drafted it, and he brought it before the board. The board read it at a meeting. The board decided it was a good letter. We have all met. I've met with the Coast Guard, UPTA, other organizations, and we're just trying to get things rolling because we do need some help. And we feel the more people we can get joining us, we have a little more pull. We've been told a lot of it's monetary value. We got to fight to get some money. And that's the only way we can do it is get a big enough group and large to go to the right people with more support from all these entities, the Sioux Tribe, Bay Mills Tribe, City of Sault Ste. Marie, anybody, we'd really appreciate it.
Commissioner Gary, you still have the floor.
I just
Thank you.
wanted to ask, how has the cooperation been with the local Coast Guard and Corps of Engineers? And how are you working with them prior to going way over their heads?
If I may, we have attempted to work with the Coast Guard on this issue over some years, and we feel that it's necessary to try and get a more formal group together to work together.
Thank you.
I have been working with the Coast Guard. I've met with them. Things have went well for myself and our treasurer. And also I met with Pete Permansky, UPTA director. Things have been going well there too. But since we started, the line of communication has gotten much better.
Okay.
It changed within a week. From the meetings we had, they come up with a hotline now for information for the residents of the island, which we never had. And our big thing was we need communication, and it's starting to fall in place. So things are looking up.
Okay, thank you. Is the township board taking a position on that?
Yes, we've all agreed to it, and I signed it as a board supervisor.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Miller, did you have your hand up?
I'm good, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay, sure. For the commission, maybe, and certainly it's a lengthy document. If we wanted to sign on, that would be up to the commission. We could also refer back to the administration and let the city manager put our flavor to the letter that might go forward, or the recommendation that might go forward, so that we understand as a city how that impacts us. And city manager, you have any feelings toward that?
Certainly, that is something that my office could complete in conversations with departments that are involved in conversations, perhaps through the type of interagency work group or dialogue that has been occurring. Certainly, it's something we could undertake.
Let me further state, too, that it is going to take, to rectify some of the situation, it will take some additional funds. I understand the the Sugar Islander 2, there has been a new boat on the horizon with UTA, but it hasn't been built yet because the monies haven't been appropriated. So you have a number of entities out there that are working together for residents on Sugar Island. And maybe this group with the city managers and our support with knowing how we could come from it, maybe add some weight to the fact that getting everyone together, like as you said, to make it better for the residents of Sugar Island and for the entities involved is something that I think we'd be interested in. Commissioner Tuardi.
Thank you. I think before the City of Sault Ste. Marie signs any sort of resolution in support of it, I would be more apt for us to join in conversation, because I would like to see how is it that the Coast Guard currently feels, what's happening at the UPTA level. I know that I did hear from Jay Gage out of Debbie Stabenow's office, and I know that they've been currently engaged also on assisting. So I think before the City of Sault Ste. Marie were to take a stand on a resolution, I think there needs to be more communication, and maybe just get that working group or conversation going, because we don't know what the conversation has been currently. And I don't know if even though we understand that's a really important issue, I'm not sure if, it's almost saying if we sign a resolution that we don't feel like people have been doing their job. And I would like to see a little bit more of a working group with some open dialogue and conversation happening. And of course, start working maybe on a resolution. But I'm not so apt to sign one until we see what the Coast Guard has to say, and to UPTA also.
We do know this is not an overnight thing. It's going to take a long time, a year or two, maybe longer. And yes, we do have a new boat designed. The blueprints are sitting on the shelf at UPTA's, but they're only 10 million short. So we're not going to get a boat overnight.
No.
So,
Okay.
but anything positive from the city would sure help. That's all we're asking.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Other commissioners?
Thank you.
Commissioner Talentino?
I guess as a
Okay.
As a recreational user of Sugar Island, a non-resident, of course, I guess a couple things that I noticed this year, and I don't know if, Mr. Mohar, if you can explain to these, or if even this is your area of expertise, is that boom is not there this year.
Correct.
And I noticed that right out of the chute. You know exactly what happened is. I realize you're not, the Corps of Engineers. I realize you're not the Coast Guard. You're just a private residence. Going across there just about every weekend or every other weekend to do what I do over there fishing, I noticed that it's not there. Do you know the situation on that?
My understanding is that a freighter took it out shortly before the locks closed on January 15th.
And we heard from the Coast Guard, and when Oliver and I met with them this week, and the freighter happened to notice that the boom had a problem. Had come apart, and he mentioned it to no vehicle hit it, or no.
Right.
They don't know what it is, but I know the Coast Guard has asked the Corps of Engineers to look into both of those things. And I think the boom is back now onshore, but they know how important that is to the ice flow. No question.
Yeah, and that's why I brought up the information in the 70
Yes.
studies that it says in the event of boom failure,
Yeah.
the Coast Guard will arrive. Immediately be dispatched. And in response to your comment, I've tried to fashion this letter as far away from blame as I can. We don't want to blame anybody. We want to fix what's wrong. That's it. We want to work with them and the Corps to fix the problem. And I'd ask that the city sign on in support of what we're trying to do.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Baker?
I was just gonna say too, I believe the big cutter too has been down by Mackinac more so than up in this area as well. So I think that's part of the problem too, because the little cutter that they have is not powerful enough to move the ice. Is that correct?
Actually, on Saturday, the Neah flushed the Little Rapids cut greatly, and did a wonderful job. I'm here to shut out the Neah Bay crew and captain right now. The 140 class, Bay class icebreaker does fine in the Little Rapids cut.
I think it's good for the commission to know that we don't know and aren't the professionals on the icebreakers and the, how that all operates. I think as what we're saying and what I hear the commission saying. So ultimately, we know the boom isn't there, and we know how important that boom has been over the years, and it's been explained again. So it's up to the commission. I think maybe sending it back to the administration to work with the groups certainly is a move forward, and we certainly can. We'll be revisiting this, I'm sure, going forward. So much like the township and Commissioner Collins.
I guess my thoughts are, obviously, I support what you're trying to do. I don't know how involved the city has to be in actually getting with the resolution and working with the different groups. I mean, my thought process is that, you know, can we just support it from a standpoint of we support the fact that you're trying to do something and kind of leave it at that without actually getting into the language of the letter and that part of the entity? Or is that,
as a commission, we can do whatever the commission decides, and that would be one way. Another way would be to send it back to the administration in support of what they are trying to do and come up with a written statement to that effect, which would.
So can we do both?
Sure.
Can we basically say, yeah, we support what they're trying to do, without getting involved with, you know, exactly how they're gonna do it and the working groups that they have?
That's
And
what
then
we're asking for.
Right. And then at the same time, if you want us to send it back to administration and have administration maybe help with the solution, then we can do that too.
Wonderful. That's great.
That's the pleasure of the commission. Okay. Is that Commissioner Miller?
Well, I think in principle, we
do
support what,
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're not against anything that you've written in your letter, or I think we basically support it, but what weight will that hold? Like, this all seems like a federal type thing to me, like what weight? Us supporting it's wonderful, but what will that do for you? What do you think it'll do for you?
I'm hopeful that it'll help get us
In what way? That's what I'm
moving
asking.
quicker. I believe that we're going to have working groups on this subject. I think it's going to take place. I'm trying to get it to take place as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Commissioner Tuardi.
I'd like to make a motion to send it back to city administration, and so that they can work on a document.
I would support that.
So move supported. Everyone understand the motion?
So we're supporting it.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Collins.
So that's basically what we just talked about, right? I mean, we're basically
Yes.
saying
Yeah.
we support it. We're gonna send it back to administration to work on supporting it. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Roy?
I'd like to thank you for considering this, but also I'd like to personally invite you all to the island, February 27th, as the Coast Guard's going to be there to explain the ice-breaking procedures. No charge, I'll even make some coffee. It's the best I can do. But it's February 27th at 7 o'clock at the community center.
7 p.m.?
Yes.
I've had your coffee. I'm good.
Well, sorry about the best I could do. But I've been to 2 of their shows already, or their displays, and it is something to see how the icebreakers work.
Yes.
It's,
Okay. Thank
But
you.
you're welcome to come over, and every one of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
That's a Tuesday night? Okay. Okay. Next, let's see, we are into item number 6, is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Item A under the city manager's report would provide for the adoption of goals established by the City Commission for the 2018-2019 fiscal year. On Monday, February 12th, the City Commission met in a full-day work session to develop the goals for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2018. The goals will provide direction to city administration as the 19 fiscal year and 20 fiscal year budgets are developed and as major projects and initiatives are planned by city administration for this time period. As an integral part of the process of establishing or reestablishing goals, the City Commission at its session reviewed the mission statement, the 2020 vision, guiding financial principles, the fund balance policy, and the debt policy for the city, and additionally reviewed basic financial information, departmental information submitted by directors, the 2014 citizen survey, and also reviewed and established the current legislative priorities of the city, reviewed the status of goals established for the current fiscal year, and established or reestablished goals for the upcoming fiscal year. In total, the City Commission established 24 goals, including both new goals and those that were carried over from this current fiscal year, that administration will address in detail in the upcoming budget development process. Generally, the goals are established across 4 categories: administration, economic development, infrastructure and equipment, and recreation. Under the administration category, there were a number of goals which were retained, including the divestment of city-owned properties, returning them to the tax rolls, pursuing a robust integration of the Coast Guard into the community, continuing to increase the focus on safety for city buildings and facilities, and creating the committee, which includes members of the business community, to reevaluate city ordinances. There were also goals which were modified from the original wording, including the prioritization of resources to support and enhance public works services, the focus on police and fire pension fund and the municipal employees retirement system pension plans, and a focus on an organization-wide implementation of the citizen service philosophy to complement those efforts already underway. Additionally, one new goal was established under the administration category to establish a blue ribbon finance committee to explore municipal revenue alternatives. Under the economic development category, those goals retained including supporting Lake Superior State University and its students, supporting the redevelopment of the Maloney's Alley vicinity, and continuing to improve the downtown properties and free up funding through TIF 1 and TIF 2 funds for development. One goal was modified from past wording to be rephrased to state to foster an outstanding and comprehensive business-friendly climate which supports wealth creation, business growth, and entrepreneurial activity. And there were 2 new goals established. The first, to stimulate and accommodate tourism by researching and establishing downtown restroom facilities, and the second, to increase funding for the Downtown Development Authority so that full-time support personnel can be hired and/or retained. Under the infrastructure and equipment category, all 3 existing goals were retained as previously established, pursuing funding from state and federal sources for the reconstruction of the Carbide Dock, continuing with the making of visual improvements throughout the city, and improving pedestrian safety so that it's safe and convenient for children and their parents or guardians to walk to school. And finally, under the recreation category, out of the 7 goals, there were 4 which were retained, continuing to establish and support outdoor recreational opportunities, pursuing the construction of a walkway along the Power Canal, integrating bicycle-friendly amenities throughout the transportation network of the city, and expanding resources dedicated for the improvement of Malcolm Field. Those 4 goals under recreation were complemented with 3 new goals, including, first, completing improvements at the Ani Osborne Campground and Sherman Park Campground to greatly enhance the quality of site amenities and improving drainage. Second, to support the expanded use of all-terrain vehicles on city streets. And third, to aggressively market parks facilities for expanded revenue opportunities. City Commission appreciates the willingness of City Administration appreciates the willingness of the City Commission to devote a full day's worth of time to this critical effort, as well as the participation of various department heads. At this time, if it's the Commission's pleasure, the goals which would be established for 2018-2019 fiscal year could be adopted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Commissioner Gary.
I move approval of the city commission goals established for the 2018-2019 fiscal year.
Support. It's been moved, supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gary,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino,
Yes.
Commissioner Tuorty,
Yes.
Mayor Bosmas.
Yes.
Commissioner Baker.
Yes.
Commissioner Collins.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
That concludes the city manager's report. Thank you, Mayor and Commission.
Okay, thank you. Item number 7, status report.
Thank you, Mayor. Item A under status reports is the presentation of a revised local government retirement system annual reporting. This is information which was presented to the City Commission at its previous meeting. It has been updated to include additional reporting for the city's component units, the Downtown Development Authority, and the Economic Development Corporation. As a recap, this is required by Public Act 202 of 2017, requiring certain filings and reportings for pension and retiree health care benefits provided to municipal employees, and also has been submitted to the Department of Treasury in compliance with the Public Act. Certainly glad to answer any questions the Commission may have on these revised reports.
Anyone have any questions? No, we're good there.
Okay, item B under status reports. Don't see Director Nepper in the audience. He mentioned to me he may present unless he fell ill. But the second item under status reports is an update on the Building Basics Workshop. This is an event that's open to the public. It's being hosted tomorrow at 5 p.m. at 313 on Ashman Street. Property owners, elected officials, interested parties, members of the community certainly welcome to come. This is being sponsored through the Main Street program, and it's discussing historic preservation, the cultivation of the sense of place, and what constitutes appropriate design in a traditional Main Street downtown environment. So anybody with an interest in this is certainly welcome to attend. Again, that's tomorrow, Tuesday, the 20th, at 5 p.m. at 313 Ashman Street, being hosted by the Main Street program.
Okay, 313 Ashman is the center, 313, we're
313 on Ashman Street.
on Ashman. What is that? What's the building? That's
The old back door.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's, next item.
And item C under status reports is an update on the Safe Routes to School informational session. Just a reminder that on Thursday, February 22nd, from 6 until 7:30 p.m., the Sioux Area Middle School Library Media Center, there will be a presentation that's hosted jointly by Sioux Area Public Schools and the Safe Routes to School program, and it's giving parents and community members the opportunity to provide input on the needs for safe routes to Washington, Lincoln, and Sioux Area Middle Schools. Certainly welcome all members of the community for their input. Again, this is Thursday, February 22nd, from 6 to 7:30 at the Sioux Area Middle School Library Media Center. Thank you.
Commissioner Tuorty.
Thank you. I know that we've been talking about safe routes to school for a couple of years now, and I'm really happy to see that Sioux Area Public Schools is kind of taking the lead on this. But I'm starting to wonder what's going to happen with the reorganization of all of the schools. Why are we talking about safe routes to schools that maybe aren't going to be there in a year or two? It's just a thought that maybe city administration needs to kind of keep our ears perked up because if there are going to be big changes and we go and we make all these street reconstruction efforts, and then schools are going to be closed in the future. We just might want to keep that in mind, I guess.
Thank you for that input, Commissioner. Certainly well taken, and it will be at the top of our minds throughout the process.
Okay, thank you.
Of course, in addition, though, Lincoln School will still be an elementary school. Washington School will still be an elementary school at this point, and J.K. Elba Wadding is still large, and St. Mary's. So there are a lot of different entities, but ultimately, without a doubt, some of the reorganization going on at sewer schools, they must keep us involved as far as the city with the safe routes, plus
Absolutely.
additional information that might be coming down.
Yep, thank you.
Sure.
And that concludes the status report section of the agenda. Thank you, Mayor and Commission.
Okay, thank you. At this time, item number 8, matters presented by the public. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to make a comment at this time? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to matters presented by the City Commission. Let me first start off by, Justin Nepper isn't here, and I understand he's maybe coming down with a cold that is out there, and a lot of people have been, over the last month, 2 months, they've been experiencing this. So certainly the weekend activities, and I can maybe start the discussion. I know some people were involved in the thing, but every time I was downtown, Justin was downtown, and that, before the start, I mean, the amount of snow on the rail jam, it looked like a mountain. It was a tremendous undertaking by the, again, I think it was the group of folks that are part of that going forward with the, yes, Main Street folks, the volunteers that helped put that together and then helped clean up, and certainly the city crews. The outhouse races, I remember last year the sun shining and balmy 25, 30 degrees. This year was just 25 degrees, but not a lot of sun. But again, it was a great crowd. The kayak races, again, a big weekend in the city of Sault Ste. Marie, and I was kind of hoping Justin would be here and be able to elaborate a bit on that, but we certainly thank all those involved again. This might be the last, for the winter time, that might have been the last hurrah. There are some other smaller events coming on for sure, but with the I-500, the ice sculptures, this past activity with the outhouses and the Lockside Rail Jam, tremendous activities certainly, and those will happen every year, whether it's our 350th, it seems, or not. So congratulations to the groups that continue to make that happen, and we hope Justin is feeling better. City Commission, I see some hands. No? Are we ready to, what do you got there? Oh, yes, City Manager.
Thank you to the City Commission for allowing me to intrude on their portion of the
Yeah,
agenda.
just be careful.
Just one further update, the Battle of the Badges game is coming up Saturday, March 3rd, 3 p.m. at the Polar Stadium. All of the proceeds this year are going to the Chippewa County Care for Kids Fund. It's a great organization which works with foster kids. Again, that is, and members of the community, and it's a terrific cause. So Battle of the Badges, Police and Fire, Saturday, March 3rd, 2018, 3 p.m. at the Polar. Thank you.
Okay, and will we meet, we won't meet again before that, so the information, I believe, would be in the city clerk have information about that, I would guess, the Battle of the Badges. So if anyone's looking for information,
Yeah, we'll put it out on the city's Facebook page, or we'll have the information at the office if anybody wants to call in.
okay, thank you. Commissioner Twardy.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. I was wishing that Chief Labani was going to be here, just so that he could remind us, you do get the opportunity to buy penalties and goals, and I believe it's $20 to purchase a goal, correct, Chief Riley?
I don't know, the fire department far exceeds the police department in those free.
It's a great time.
He just left.
Yeah, it's a great time.
It's a great time.
Great fundraiser.
Yeah.
And this would be maybe the
Fifth?
fourth one?
Fourth or fifth annual?
4 wins for the police, 1 for the fire.
Fifth, okay. Fifth one.
So I was going to ask, is there any way to maybe find out the penalty purchase price and then the goal purchase price and put that on Facebook? Okay. Thank you, thank you.
Commissioner Baker?
Just want to remind people if they don't know about it already, but The 100 Women with a Heart will be at Maloney's this Thursday from 6 to probably 8 o'clock at night. It's a group of women that started an awesome charity event. Essentially, the goal is to get 100 women in there to donate $100 each. And it kind of goes based off, the more people you have to put in a vote for your charity into a bucket, and then they draw 3 out of that, and then they give those people an opportunity to speak and why the money should go to them. So the object is to give $10,000 away to a charity on Thursday night. So if you have a charity that's in need, a 501c3, round up a bunch of people that have $100 to donate and come put your vote in, and there's going to be appetizers and stuff on the house. Wicked Sister did it last year. It was a great turnout. Sioux Theater got it last year. They only had 50 women show up last year, but $5,000 went to the Raise the Roof campaign last year, so hopefully we'll hit that $10,000 money goal this year for a charity in need.
Okay, great. Thank you. Commissioner Gary.
I move we adjourn.
Support.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.